Julia Cameron reminds us in The Artist's Way, our creativity is a normal and natural part of us. We are meant to sing, to dance, to draw, and to doodle poems. Art lives in the heart, and we all have one. Welcome, everyone. I am Nanette Saylor, your host. We are here for another episode of the Create, Play, Live podcast. And I am super excited today to introduce you to my guest, Amy Jones, who comes to us from the opposite coast. Some of you probably have figured out by now that I hail from South Florida. So it's always fun for me to cross the divide and have conversations in other parts of the globe. And Amy is going to bring to us a little special bit of her take on the world about curiosity, creativity, and play, and share with us what she's been up to lately, which is in alignment, actually, with a couple of our guests so far. So without further ado, I am going to introduce you all to Amy Jones and invite her to say hello and tell you a little bit about herself.
Thank you, dear. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be here. And I suppose, well, I think it's appropriate to where we are right now. I am a very creative person who has expressed that in a bunch of different ways. And so about 3 years ago, after leading a career that was in marketing and branding and digital strategy, I decided to create a business that would be founded on my artwork, which was a big deal for me because that was the first time I'd ever sold my artwork. And it was the beginning of this, now at this point, 3-year adventure of sharing my art with the world and realizing that it could be a catalyst for connection and for growth and inspiration. And that has continued to evolve. And I am nothing if not prolific. So the different expressions of the creativity and mediums continue to evolve. So I have been coaching. I'm a strategist. I've been focused on that for over 2 years now. And through that, have also realized that there's another opportunity for me to take technology, particularly app-based technology, and take what I have learned and come to know through coaching and strategy and translate that into a tool that can help millions of people as they are, kind of navigating their way through their days and being a human here on the planet. So I apparently love many different mediums and love that I begin wherever I am. And by pursuing whatever I'm curious about and using that creative energy, it unfolds into something even better.
Yes, I think, it's really interesting to me. I wasn't aware that 3 years ago was the first time that you stepped out to selling your art. And it's probably about the time that we connected through your maps, your progress maps. And I should share with everyone that I've been a fan of Amy's progress maps, and we'll definitely include those in the resource section on the show notes for everybody to see. And I had been looking myself for a way to track things that didn't feel like the traditional goals, if you will. And I had come to understand that my brain just couldn't wrap itself around what this concept of a goal was. And I'd gotten to a place where I was calling my goals intentions. I was calling them milestones or markers. And then I discovered that Amy had created this system of swirls and designs where I could actually put marker on the circles for my markers. That really worked for me. So, yeah. And now, as you move forward, what other things are catching your attention?
I am just so fascinated by humans and particularly what we do when we're afraid and what we do when we are not. So the energy of fear and what is created from that, and the energy of love and what comes from that, and the very practical expressions and manifestations of that in our day to day. I'm a big fan of the famous quote, which I can't recall her name, but the way that we live our days is how we live our lives. And I think it's just a very human thing to constantly be waiting for something to happen, or for ourselves to be different, to have more money or less weight or a relationship, etc. And so there's so much waiting and putting off of our life that I'm really interested in. How do we come back into the now and take it from something that we talk about and that it's so important to be present and mindfulness and so forth, and how do we really integrate that? Because that's fascinating to me, the integration of the intellectual idea into the felt experience.
Yeah, wow, that's something to be said again. The integration of that intellectual experience into what's felt. Yeah. Yes. That's, and thank you for pointing that out, because I know in today's world, we hear this mindfulness all the time. There's a lot of conversation around be present, be in the moment, be in the now. Saying it and acting it are two different things, right? And being in the space of being able to redirect ourselves and our thoughts and our behaviors to things that are reminding us to stay present, I think is, yes, there's a lot of attention that I believe needs to be given to this idea of practicing something that keeps you from wandering off into that, when I get to this place, I'll have this thing, whatever that is, or I'll feel this way.
Yes.
And it's interesting that, do you find that your creative activities, that they bring you to that space of practicing presence?
Yes, when I allow them to.
Okay.
When I, for example, the piece of artwork that is behind you, I realize our listeners cannot see it, but there is a progress map of mine that you had gotten a couple of years ago, whenever that was. And the night that I drew that, I was sitting in the same room and I put on some music and I just let myself not have a plan. I had an intention that I was going to create a piece of art that would help people visualize bigger goals, and that each one of the swirls that I was drawing as part of this design would represent an action that someone would take to achieve that goal. And because I am a recovering perfectionist, mostly recovered, but still recovering, it was a big deal for me to give myself permission to just draw, just pick up the pen, that, Sharpie marker, drawing in permanent ink, and let myself just be and enjoy the moments, the music, the evening. And, it was a school night, so to speak. So this was very unusual for me.
Yeah.
And I just drew what felt good. And I wasn't counting the number of swirls. And what it ended up happening is that I have a whole collection from that one drawing, and you have a version of that. And so I had this design that was made up of, I can't remember exactly, maybe say 187 swirls or something like that. And so I had the design scanned, and then had someone with a kind of production background help me clean things up a little bit and really get it into a format where it would be something that I could have printed and sold and be able to scale and serve folks. So I took that into Photoshop and I erased whatever swirls I needed to get the number of swirls I wanted for a particular piece. So, for example, that 187 swirl piece of art then also became a 150 swirl piece, 125, 100, and it just, I mean, there's like 20 different versions. It's the same piece of art. It's just various stages of it, and what's been erased and what's not.
Isn't that interesting? I would never have made that assumption that it's the same piece of art that then is manipulated with the technology that we have available to us. Very interesting. And I think that our listeners, hopefully some of them are thinking out loud that, hey, I might be able to do something with my art in that way. Because I think a lot of the time, I know I talk to people who every day are trying to figure out how to replicate something or how to use their personal designs in a way that that can be production light, right? And certainly it sounds like you figured that out. So kudos to you for that. And it turned into a tool that can be used for all of these different things. I mean, I'm sure that in your experience over the last few years, you've heard countless stories about the way people are using these swirls to measure their progress. And it's got to be really heartening.
It is. Yeah. It's, for me, it's a great reminder that it is not my job to judge my art and the worthiness of my art. And when I sat down to draw that night, and I, really was being very conscious about giving myself permission and lowering the stakes in my head and just letting myself just draw without having an agenda. Like, it's okay if you don't use it. It's okay if it's imperfect. I also remember thinking about the energy that the place that I was in, that I was putting into, through my hand, through this pen, into the drawing,
Yes.
And so this particular drawing it's now in thousands of homes throughout the world. And it was a big deal for me because it took a lot of courage to show up, to draw, to dare that I could create this as a product. I'd never sold my art. I had convinced myself years ago when I was in high school that I was no longer good enough to be called an artist. Yeah. Because while that had been my identity since I was 5, maybe even before that, I had associated my art and the value of my art as needing to be externally validated. And so by the time I got to high school, I looked around and there were a couple folks in my art class that I deemed superior to me in talent. So I thought, well, this has been fun. It's run its course, but I'm out of my depth. I'm no longer an artist and I don't get to keep drawing and doing this. So it was almost 20 years of not drawing, not calling myself an artist, not valuing that skill, to then have the courage to show up and create it. And then you figure out how to build a website and put it online so that people could purchase it. And it was staggering to me that people wanted to buy it, And one thing that I think is particularly important to note is that the most popular design that I have sold the most quantity of is the one design that I almost didn't put up because I don't like it. I'm just not a fan. I mean, I was erasing. I needed to get to a certain swirl count and I couldn't kind of get the balance the way I wanted. So, it's not my favorite, but who cares?
Everybody else loves it.
That's not my job. My job is to show up and be brave and have an attitude of service and sharing that and trusting that the people who will be served by it will find it. And then it's not about me anymore. It's giving somebody a tool that they get to use in whatever way they want. And it's really been lovely to hear the stories, to meet people, to find that I have a bunch of fans in Australia, which was just such a surprise. Never something that I would have thought would happen. And yet I have this wonderful contingency of folks in Australia that when I eventually go visit at some point in the future, probably would literally offer their homes for me to stay in,
Yes. Yes. What a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yes. And thank you for framing that story to give us insight into the journey of releasing just that whole idea of being the perfect artist, and actually coming to it from the place of having not owned being an artist for a long time. It's true for so many people that I talk to, that somewhere along the line we had an experience that, and almost always it's that we were looking out, we were looking at everybody else around. My creative experience was, I am so adverse to competition that I didn't want to ever be in a place where somebody who wanted it more than me would lose because my stuff was quote unquote better.
Yep.
So it's so interesting to me, the dynamics when we get to a place in our lives where we start to be able to observe and unravel some of that story, to experience the freedom that comes from being brave enough to step back in the ring. Right? It's a really interesting place to be. And I am really grateful to be in the space myself and to be able to surround myself with women like you who are doing the same thing. And through our stories, my hope is that it won't be 20 years before somebody circles back, right? Or the 30 that it was in my case, that it'll be a lot shorter, or even they won't take the U-turn at all. That hopefully we're starting to shine the light on that creative energy, creative essence is purely your own, to do with it whatever it is that you choose to do with it. And the world receives it however they receive it, but the two don't have to be connected in that space that says, I do this because you're going to receive it X way. And I think that's the other thing that's fun about getting to a place of being able to disconnect from the purposeful creation of art and to circle back to the playful creation of something. So I love that your designs remind me to stay in the playful place, because the swirls, and I like to use multiple colors in mine, and there's flow and there's movement. And I think that connects me to something that helps me to stay in a much lighter place about where it is I'm trying to go, as opposed to a very linear chart or graph with all the traditional business tools on it about, am I getting from point A to point B?
Yes.
This is a much more playful way to do it. And I think that's why it resonated so loudly with me when I saw it. So thank you for sharing it with the world and being brave enough to just put it out there. So it's great. Really, really great.
My pleasure.
You are now giving a lot of attention to technology. And as I shared a little bit in the beginning of our conversation, you are not the first of the Create, Play, Live podcast guests who have this interesting connection between technology and creativity. And so I wanted to give us an opportunity to explore that, particularly because I think you have a really interesting take on it. And so if you would share with us how this is all showing up for you right now.
Absolutely. I think I've been fascinated with technology and humanity and where those things intersect, and where humanity is irreplaceable by technology, and where technology can enhance humanity.
Yes.
So that's been where I've been quite curious, and the experience that I've had in creating the artwork, which I call progress maps. You're mapping your progress as you color in and take action and create a piece of art for yourself. What I found through conversations with people who had purchased the maps, who were, reaching out and asking questions and wanting to know how to do it right, and being scared to color it in because they didn't want to make it ugly, they didn't want to ruin it, or they were creating very stringent criteria and rules for them to earn a swirl and when it was okay for them to color it in. I realized that the artwork really served as a mirror and would help me see someone's humanity and how they treat themselves.
Yes. Interesting. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what sparked conversations. And I was very curious about, like, well, what do you mean?
Well, you've already got me going, I better take a closer look at what my swirls look like.
It's so funny because I didn't expect that initially, but it soon became clear that, and this was not like an isolated thing, where really people were creating a logic and rules and self-policing around their expression of progress and how they measured it and what was worthy of celebrating through a swirl. So naturally, I was extremely interested in that, given how much I love humans and how curious I am. It did not take long for that to evolve into me wanting to teach and wanting to share my experience and different perspectives, again, helping someone move from looking at their, in this case, progress map from an energy of fear into allowing them to, come from love. And as that evolved, as I began teaching courses, then I realized that, I actually can coach. And for me, the distinction between teaching and coaching is here's something that I know how to do, that I've done, and I'm going to teach you how to do it so you can do it too.
Yes.
And coaching is the art of asking questions and listening and allowing and letting somebody come to the answers themselves.
Yes.
So that was an important transition for me.
Yes.
And because I am a strategist, I'm constantly moving through the world where I'm looking at things and how can it be made easier or faster or richer. And so the culmination of all of those things was that I realized that so much of a human being able to make progress, and I don't define that strictly in, paying off debt or losing weight or whatever the goal is, has nothing to do with the goal. It's the setting an intention to want to create an experience in life, and then summoning the courage to step out into the unknown where, when you are creating something new, by definition, you are leaving what is known, what is comfortable.
Yes.
And because we are human animals, we have a powerful, powerful primitive brain that I nicknamed clever brain, just, out of love. That I think, honestly, we underestimate just how powerful it is and how much it drives our behavior. And
I agree.
And for as evolved as we think we are, it's like, well, so we're still pretty much an animal. So it's developing the practice of recognizing our inner experience, especially what's going on in our body, what is running through our head, what are we feeling, and what are we making all of that mean. And our primitive brain wants us to make it mean, when we're trying something new or even considering trying something new, that is risky, it is suspicious, not a good idea, and that our clever brain will tell us whatever it is that we will be devastated by, so that we will be so scared and terrified. They'll be like, okay, just kidding. I'm going to go watch that.
Not going to do that. No.
Yeah, exactly. So, for
bad
somebody,
idea. I was just faking.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know what that was, but it's, somebody who has very high standards for themselves, who really values excellence and integrity, who genuinely wants to make a difference, and connect meaningfully, their clever brain is going to say things like, you don't know what you're doing. You're not good enough. You're not experienced enough. You're going to screw it up. You're going to embarrass yourself. No one's going to want it. It will take the inverse of whatever the value is, and then use that and manipulate it in a ruthless way to just shut you down. It doesn't care how cruel it has to be to stop you, because if it stops you, it thinks that it protects you. And it's just a very, very simplified, overly simplified security system that has really helped us, the last 3 million years. And yet we're in this really unique period of history where we have these unprecedented levels of consciousness and connectivity and communication. And these creative mediums through technology.
Yes.
So it's, this is all new. And what was exciting to me is understanding that our humanity was directly impacting our capacity for creativity and contribution and connection and community and all the good stuff that we love. And again, the strategist in me was thinking, okay, how can I help more people make more progress more easily? How can I help people remember who they are and connect to what is true, that conscious choosing of love? Because as a coach, as a teacher, as somebody who's, created a lot of videos and put out a lot of content on social media, it felt limiting in that it felt like I was having a lot of, kind of one-way conversation, certainly with what I was putting out publicly, where I'm putting out ideas, I'm putting out videos, I'm putting out content in the hope that it will meet you at the right time and be the thing that you really needed to see that day. The thing that would help you feel less alone, that would help you feel braver or inspired or encouraged. And it felt like just throwing shit at the wall and then hoping that something happened. And excuse me,
I can resonate with that sense. Yeah, clearly, because you in the space of the technology where we're showing up to film a video, or we're putting out a blog post, or we're putting a bunch of memes up, or we're doing something on Twitter, a Facebook post, it's you talking at whoever might randomly happen to receive it. And if we're lucky, they receive it when they needed it. And that's not the optimum solution. So
agreed. And what I've come to really understand with working with a lot of different people from literally multiple countries throughout the world, different backgrounds and so on, is that, as humans, we are so driven by that clever brain. And we, it's just this human phenomenon where we all feel alone. And because of our survival instincts, we are constantly monitoring and comparing and sizing up and trying to figure out, am I okay? Am I okay? Am I enough? Was that enough? It's this anxiety that is so powerful, and it's just become a sort of predictable side effect that we want to hide that fear. We want to hide that insecurity by presenting as being, the most powerful or the prettiest or the thinnest or the smartest or the best artist, whatever, in any context of more than one human getting together. We instinctively compare and go into fear and start to shut down. And so from my perspective, I thought, okay, technology can surely provide a framework and an expansive space that can customize to millions of people. So what I mentioned a little bit ago about Clever Brain taking whatever you value and who you are and what matters to you, and then, taking the kind of opposite of that and saying mean, scary things that are going to, impact you. So for example, somebody like me that holds really high standards, the fear of I'm not doing it right or I'm not doing it good enough is terrifying. For somebody that really doesn't care about that, is like, whatever, done's better than good.
Yeah.
Clever Brain's not going to say that.
Right.
It's like,
right. The message
that's not scary.
It's not
Yeah,
So
it'll
what?
come up with something else, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like you can't get anything done, you know? And
Right.
so to me, I saw the opportunity to create a tool that would allow us to take all of that custom information and the things that really resonate with us, that matter to us on an individual level, and to have an app-based technology that could feed us these pieces and feed us these reminders at the right time when we need them, so that it's not just this general, here's this whole thing, like here's your Pinterest boards and
Mm.
categories of things that you love and that you like, or but here's just a feed. I wanted something that helped us acknowledge what we were feeling in that moment, in that present moment. Here's what's going on, here's what I'm feeling in my body, whether it's a painful feeling or one that feels good. Here I am, and I can acknowledge how I'm feeling, tell the app, one word, this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling tired right now. And then for that app to be able to serve content that is helpful when you are tired. And what I know from my research is that a shocking number of us need to be reminded that it's okay to be tired.
Yes. Yes. I just had a whole conversation about it's okay to rest. It's
Mhm.
okay to rest. It's okay to pause. It's okay to take that moment. Yeah, just yesterday was revisiting that with someone, and this idea that when we're tired, it's okay, and there's something next to do, and a
Mhm.
lot of times it is rest, and that's an
Mhm.
okay next right step.
Yes.
Especially in, and I think it's particularly true for creatives, we tend to go to the make something place as
Mm.
our, go to the be busy place, go to the do something place when I don't
Mhm.
feel good. And so I'm totally with you that this idea that we could all benefit from being reminded that when you're tired, there is a different possible next right step than just keep pushing through, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
It is recognizing our experience and valuing it.
What I find particularly exciting about your project is that you have identified this space where we have all kinds of technologies that push things to us that we maybe do or don't want to see.
Mhm.
And you're taking that whole paradigm and turning it on its head, basically, and
Mhm.
saying, okay, so now that we've figured out how to cultivate all of this stuff, why can't we take the same technology that pushes content that we didn't really ask for, or maybe we did ask for some of it, but it's not really what we wanted or what we need in the moment, and
Yeah.
somehow just change the mechanism for how it is that you decide what is going to open the channel, I guess.
Mhm.
And what I what I'm pretty sure I'm hearing you say is that I get to cultivate that collection of material along the way. And
Yes.
that I think is it's super cool. And I'm really excited to be supporting your effort. I think it's just awesome. So how can other people find out more about your project and jump on board supporting you to bring this thing to the world?
I love that question. And the new site is up. I just put it up. It is recollectbetter.com.
Oh,
And the name I have for this tool is Recollect, because it is really about remembering what
mm,
matters to you. And it is
nice.
allowing you to recollect yourself, regardless of what you are feeling, and take that moment to come back to yourself, to be present, to choose, to care for yourself. And it is also helping you recollect all of the things that you already have collected, And for lots of us, it has been what we've written down in journals, if we've taken classes or courses, the notes, the key learnings, it's taking screenshots, it's what we saved on Pinterest or Facebook or Instagram. It is so many things that at some point or another you have said, this matters to me. I want to remember that. You might read a quote and literally feel in your body a release, a relaxation, a warmth. And so what Recollect seeks to do is to have that experience where you may be scrolling on something on Facebook or, wherever. And it's just like, oh, that is what I needed. That was the reminder today. That's what resonates. So I'm seeking to recreate that regularly, consistently, anytime that you want. And using both what we're talking about with the active and receptive energies. Part of Recollect is going to be curate, myself and eventually the team curating content and things that we love, or you've told us, collectively as a community that you've loved, so that if you want to just receive and just sort and choose from the content that we've collected, you can build your collection that way. If you want to be active and to upload or import or contribute and create your own content, you can do that as well. And you can make that content available to be shared with the community if you would like to. You can keep it 100% private. Yeah. So that's what I'm focused on, is how do I make it as easy as possible to accommodate as many individuals as possible and allow you to craft something that is truly a one-of-a-kind collection just for you. It's not social media. It's not about likes. It's not about followers. It's not any of the manipulative crap that has been done to hook people into technology and really play upon their compulsions and fears. It is, to your point, the opposite of that. Yeah. So recollect better. Please come say hello. If you wish, you can request an invite to be one of the first people to test. If you really love this idea and you so want to see this in the world, you can become a founding member. And you can put a deposit on your future membership, and then you get to be as involved as you would like in helping shape the technology and sharing ideas. And really, it's a collaborative, creative effort within our community. So I would love for people to come check it out. Best place to communicate with me these days is LinkedIn. I am on there most days. I put out a lot of content. I create a lot of videos that are only seen on LinkedIn. So please come find me and reach out, and I would love to hear from you.
Thank you for that. And thank you for the invite for all of our listeners. I really appreciate, I am a huge fan of collective, collaborative efforts. And I really appreciate that you reached out into the world and said, hey, I have this idea and I see the possibility and I want to invite others who can see my vision too, to support this, because, there's something really magical about that, coming into projects from that space. My belief is, this creative energy that's floating around amongst us all, it's all connected. So when we come together with the same intention, we just amplify that stuff, and it makes it so much more powerful, the possibilities of where things like this can go. So hats off to you for being brave enough to put it out there, because I know, that it's interesting to observe you starting this project and being fairly vocal about it when it really was just an idea. And I think that's a learned skill, to be in the space of being brave in that way. Yeah. And it's also a learned skill to have that ongoing conversation with yourself every time it's time to, okay, now I've put this out in the world, I've said something public about it. Now there's this follow-up thing that has to happen. There's more of the story I need to tell. And that for me is when Clever Brain jumps in really loudly and
Yes.
starts screaming really loudly at that stage, because now it's okay. That was the easy part, just saying you are going to do it. Now, girlfriend, you got to start showing up and actually doing it.
Yes. Yes. When you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
When you haven't been here before.
Right.
Yeah. It's all that stuff kicks in. And I promise you, navigating it every single day.
Yeah.
And this is what it is to be human. I right now I'm just practicing sinking into where I'm at. And I can see this vision so clearly. I can feel it. I literally feel it like in every cell of my being that this is what I'm supposed to do. And this is how I'm here to serve, and to create the space and the invitation for as many people who want to be part of this to come join and to collectively share. And remember who we are, and that we're not alone, and that there's not, something wrong with us, that we're just, that's it. That's the stuff.
It's such good stuff. Really, really good stuff. So thank you for being you and showing up to bring this thing as it evolves. I think it's super cool. What came to mind for me, I just want to share it, as you were talking about the platform. I thought, you know what? This is like an art journal in an app. And as you were talking about all the different places that things come together, I recently completed a certification in healing with the arts. And one of the things that we did was an art journal. And of all the things that I've done in my creative existence, art journaling is not one of the things that I have gone to, mostly because I was always resisting all the stuff, that having all these pieces. It always seemed like everybody I watched on videos doing art journals had, all of these paper and glue and paints and all kinds of materials. And I thought, my journaling activity is supposed to be relaxing and just kind of quiet. And, what's all this mess?
Right.
And I'm not a neat freak, but all of that stuff in the art journal world was just never something that appealed to me. This go around, the facilitator invited us to consider collecting things that felt good. And that's why what you're talking about resonated as this art journal collection, this art journal connection, because I had never really thought about it that way before. My written journaling is just a stream of consciousness, pretty much. And so when she instructed us to consider every day going to the pages of our art journal and curate things that felt good, that was a totally different experience. And I just, as you were talking about all the different places, I thought, oh, interesting. So I get to have, because who's going to carry their art journal around all day long? Not very many of us. They're usually big and bulky and they're thick, but they've got, and I'm going to open that up at a business meeting and go, okay, that picture, that's going to lift me up today. So I can see that the app has the potential to be that, and to really take the feeling of that into this new space. So thank you for that. I'm enjoying what I imagine as the possibilities of the things that can be curated there. So
I love that. I love that perspective and how you connected those dots. And that's exactly where we're headed. And kind of like you were saying earlier, when I started with the progress maps, and once someone, gets that map, it's their art. It is their interpretation. It's their show. And that's what I feel like Recollect is going to be, is that we're creating the framework and the canvas, and then you make it into whatever it is that you want.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm really excited about is the opportunity for people to recollect their mementos, the things that are so personal to them.
Yeah.
And, the example from last week is my sister's a high school teacher. And it was the end of the year, and she got these beautiful handwritten notes from her students that just made her cry and were so touching. And so for her, taking a photo of those, she wants to recollect that, because on the days when her students are not super fun and are just a mess, and she is questioning her effectiveness, and, to be so frustrated, for her to put into the app, frustrated, and then to have that be brought back to her and to remind her that it matters, that she is making an impact. That's the kind of thing
super
where
cool.
I'm just beyond, like, I'm obsessed. So I love being able to share this story. You are the first podcast that I've been able to introduce Recollect with. So someday
I'm so honored.
you can be at my cocktail parties. You know, that's me. I broke that story. I promise you. Mark my words. It's coming.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's interesting that the podcast I recorded just the other day was pure stream of consciousness, and at the end, I made some comments about, this is in perpetuity. When you and I commit, you do a lot of online video. When we put it out there into the interweb, it's out there, and it's out there. We don't even know. Some time capsule 3,000 years from now is going to show up with your videos and my podcast in it, right?
Yes.
Somebody's going to laugh.
Yes, you never know who's going to find it, and that it's going to be that thing that they needed that day. And all I'm trying to do with Recollect is just make that happen more often.
Yeah. And I think it's super cool. So thank you, my friend, for being here. So glad to spend this time with you, and really appreciate that we had an opportunity to share with all the Create, Play, Live listeners some more of this fun intersection of creativity and technology, because, as thrilled as I am about the conversation around creativity bubbling up into new places where people hadn't previously been giving it a lot of attention, I still see this real hard line between the artists over here and the geeks over there. And what's clearly happening in the conversations I'm having is that I'm seeing that this divide does not need to exist, that the process of looking at things from a space of being open to explore and unravel and connect dots and all of that stuff that's creative thought takes us in every direction possible. And it's that swirly brain picture that we all see in those examples of what the creative brain looks like.
Yeah.
And yet that creative brain swirls around and figures out how to connect all of these seemingly disconnected pieces. And I think that's what makes it possible for somebody like you to look at this technology and say, hey, I think I've got a solution that's going to really serve, and it's going to be different than what we've seen before, because I can see it. And it's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for shining a light on that part of the conversation that we're having here in the world of Create, Play, Live. And I imagine that we will have another conversation like this again sometime in the future, because there's so much more that we can talk about.
Yes. When we launch and we've had the community and the collective to participate and to grow and evolve and enrich. I look forward to that. And thank you so much for this invitation and opportunity and conversation.
You're very really welcome. So I want to remind everybody, be sure to check out the resources in the show notes for this go around, because there's going to be a lot of good stuff there. Do reach out and connect to Amy Jones, who's playing over on LinkedIn most frequently, which you don't see me playing in very often, but I have a profile there. So if you
Yes.
tag me, somehow eventually I'll see it, but I
You
will
sure will.
admit to not checking it very often. And so until we meet again, I will sign us all out and say, have a beautiful, beautiful day, my friends. Enjoy, and please do continue moving through the world with your widest eyes opened and your, the curious eyes of a child, and just enjoy that experience, because what we know is that that's where the magic happens, and we'll be looking for lots of super cool magic to come out of Recollect and Amy's new app. So I will sign us off, say goodbye, and stay curious, my friends. This is Nanette Saylor and Amy Jones saying goodbye for today. You are listening to the Create, Play, Live show, where women come together to share how curiosity and creativity lead them to extraordinary lives. I'm your host, Nanette Saylor, and I'm honored to share the mic with some truly amazing women who have asked and answered the question, what if we stop adulting and live every day with the curiosity of a child at play? In these enlightening conversations, we'll invite you to let go of outdated standards, make your own rules, and give yourself permission to play more than ever before. You have the power to create your life. Spend some time with us, and you'll learn to see life through new eyes and challenge yourself to new possibilities. We may not solve the world's problems, but we will get you to think differently about your own. Come play with us. Listen and subscribe at createplaylive.com.